You don't know what Mother Nature is going to throw at you. So in my mind, when I come out the gate, I'm coming out with everything I got.
A regular Tuesday afternoon in October turned into the day the music died for a famous swamp family. The fearless leader, who everyone looks up to, was about to have his most guarded secret revealed to the whole world. For 30 years, he managed to keep two separate worlds from ever touching, but fate had other plans.
Now, I'll be honest with y'all, it's not easy to raise a family, and today it's a lot different.
Times change.
We just lucky that we all still live close by and can spend as much
I'm
time.
very, very, very fortunate.
It is not that simple, though, because the truth is much heavier than anyone could have guessed. Get this, because we are going deep into the marsh to find out what happens when a long lie finally hits the shore. Hidden health crisis. The morning of March 15th started like any other for the king of the swamp, as he woke up before the sun to check his trap lines. He was alone in the deep water of the basin when his left arm went numb and his chest started to feel like a giant gator was sitting on it. What most people do not realize is that he had been ignoring warnings from his doctor for many years because he thought he was stronger than his own DNA.
We're not going to just surrender and give up. We're going to fight to the very end.
He was miles away from help and his phone was back in his truck, but he knew he was having a heart attack right then and there. He managed to drive the boat back to the landing while his vision was blurry and he could barely breathe. Once he reached his truck, he did something that would change his life forever by calling a woman named Marie instead of his wife first. He told her what was happening and where he was going before he finally called for help. The ambulance took him to a hospital in Lafayette where his two separate worlds were about to crash into each other in the waiting room. For 30 years, he had been playing a game of hide and seek with his own family, and it was all ending in a cardiac unit. The nurses were very confused when two different women showed up claiming to be the most important person in his life. For starters, there was his wife of many years, who everyone knew from the television show. Then there was a woman from a town 40 miles away who had been his secret partner for 3 decades. The crazy part is that they had never met and had no idea about each other until that very moment in the hospital. As he lay there with tubes and monitors, he decided he could not die with this lie still in his heart. He asked to see both of them together, which is something no one in the hospital had ever seen before. He confessed everything while he was barely conscious, and the pain on their faces was worse than the heart attack. He told his wife about the second family and the daughter he had kept hidden since the early 90s. It was a massive betrayal that shattered 30 years of trust in less than 15 minutes. He survived the surgery, but the life he knew was gone forever as soon as he closed his eyes.
I'm going to do all I can within my power to hold on to my way of life and my family's way of life.
What most people do not realize is that the secret was much deeper than just one afternoon. Secret family ties. The story of this hidden life really started back in 1993 at a crawfish festival in a small town. Basically, he met a school teacher named Marie, and they had a connection that neither of them could ignore, even though he was already married. He made a choice back then to live as two different men because he did not want to walk away from his responsibilities. When their daughter Camille was born in 1994, he told his wife he was on a long hunting trip so he could be at the hospital. For 30 years, he lived in a rotation where he would drive 40 miles to the other house at least twice every month. He would tell his sons he was scouting new areas or going to business meetings in the city, but he was really going to see his other child. He taught Camille how to fish in hidden spots where no one would recognize his famous face from the show. It was a balancing act that required him to be a master of lies and a master of timing. Marie never asked him to leave his wife because she understood the impossible spot they were in together. She was okay with being the secret woman in the shadows as long as he was there for their daughter. But that choice meant he missed birthdays and holidays because those days belonged to his public family in the other town.
The day is the big day. Oh, look at me Galafa. I wrote everything down. I wrote everything Pee-wee told me.
Camille grew up wondering why her dad had to leave before the sun came up and why she could not tell her friends who he was. And get this, his sons, Jacob and Chase, had no idea they had a sister living so close to them for their entire lives. He had to keep separate bank accounts and even a post office box in another town to keep the paper trail clean. The stress of this started to give him panic attacks when he turned 40 because he was always afraid the walls would fall down. He would wake up in the middle of the night covered in sweat after dreaming that both families were in the same room. He loved everyone involved, which just made the guilt feel like a heavy weight he could never put down. Massive hidden fortune. While everyone watched him wrestle gators in dirty clothes, he was actually building a massive business empire that no one knew about. The hunting you see on the screen was only a small part of how he was making his millions over the years. He had been buying up land and houses all across Louisiana since the middle of the 90s, using company names that did not have his own name on them. By the time he became a huge star, he already owned 17 rental properties and several big buildings in the city. He learned from his father that being rich out in the open makes you a target, so he kept his wealth invisible.
We've always been real close, Dad and I. And I guess it's because we were always together, you know. I could almost thank him for everything I know, you know.
He drove old trucks and wore the same worn-out boots to keep up the image of a simple swamp man. But behind that image was a guy who owned shares in big transport companies and even a fancy hotel in New Orleans. This hidden money was the only way he could pay for 2 different households without his wife getting suspicious. He set up a trust fund for Marie so she would have a monthly check that looked like it came from an inheritance. When Camille needed braces or a car for college, the money came from accounts that his wife never saw. His accountant was one of the only people who knew the full truth about the millions of dollars hidden in shell companies. The money from the television show went into the joint account he shared with his wife to pay for their regular life. This made it look like they were doing well, but not like they were multimillionaires, which kept the secret safe. But keeping track of 2 different lives meant he had to remember which credit card to use and which story to tell at all times. It was a second job that never ended, and it started to ruin his health as he got older. He was constantly counting numbers in his head to make sure no one found a mistake in his books. He was a rich man living a poor man's life while supporting a secret family in the dark. Exploding family confrontation. The first big meeting after the hospital happened in a cold office building on a very humid Saturday.
We try to have family get-togethers at least once a week. Sometime if we not too busy working, twice a week. We like to get together, the whole family.
Everyone was there, including his wife and his sons, along with Marie and the daughter they just found out about. His wife had lost a lot of weight from the stress, and her hands were shaking the whole time. His sons were so angry they could barely look at him because they felt like their whole childhood was a lie. When the accountant showed them that he was worth $7 million, his wife almost fainted from the shock. She had spent years worrying about small bills while he was sitting on a mountain of hidden cash. The sons wanted to know about every single time he had looked them in the eye and told a story that was not true. It was a very hard afternoon where people were shouting and crying as 30 years of secrets came out at once. The daughter, Camille, sat there in silence while her brothers realized who she was for the first time. The crazy part is that she looked exactly like them and had the same eyes as their father. His wife was very cold to Marie, but she told Camille that none of this was her fault because she was just a child. One of the sons got so mad he punched a hole in the wall because he could not handle the betrayal. They found out that the man they thought was a hero was actually a master of deception. He sat at the head of the table and took every bit of the anger because he knew he deserved it for what he did. There was no way to fix the trust in just one day, and the meeting ended with everyone going their separate ways in pain. It was the first time in 30 years that the truth was fully out in the open, and it felt like a bomb had gone off. He was no longer the king of the swamp. He was just a man who had broken every heart he ever loved. Final swamp redemption. The months after the secret came out were the hardest of his life as he had to move out of his family home. He was living in a small rental house alone while his wife tried to decide if she wanted a divorce. He still had to work on the boats with his sons because it was the family business and they could not just stop.
Chaser's gonna come help me this morning. We're gonna run the lines. And I don't know, the moon is full. And it looks like to me we always catch a little better on a full moon.
But the fun and the jokes were gone and they only talked about work while they were out on the water. The cameras for the show could see that something was wrong because he did not have his usual energy anymore. People online started to talk about why he looked so sad and why the family seemed so distant from each other. He knew he had to tell the story himself before the rumors got even worse than the truth. He sat down with a reporter and told the whole thing from the very beginning to the very end. When the story was published, the whole country started talking about his double life and his secret millions. Some people were very mean about it and called him a fraud, but others felt bad for the mess he was in. His wife was devastated to see her private life in the news, but she knew he had to be honest now. A big change started to happen when his wife finally agreed to talk to Marie on the phone. They were just two women who had been hurt by the same man, and they found a way to be civil for the sake of the kids. His sons also started to get to know their sister Camille, and they realized she was a good person who had been hidden for too long. He started going to therapy to understand why he felt like he had to lie for 3 decades. It took a long time, but slowly the anger started to turn into a very quiet kind of understanding. He would never be the same hero he was before, but he was finally living as one man instead of two. So here is the deal. He lost his reputation, but he finally found a way to be honest with himself. Do you think a man can ever truly be forgiven for keeping a second family secret for that long? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of your favorite stars.